time. Yeah, this boy is on my mind. The number one thing on my wish list. Oh, Santa, tell me you know that I've been good. I put the lights up just for you. You're the only one who can make my dreams come true. I could see the end until he looked my way. I used to be blue, now I'm brand new, all wrapped up in red. I keep on dreaming of his face. He just melts my heart away. I'm all glittery 'cause he makes it feel like Christmas every day. Now the winter's here to stay. All I want is his embrace. Maybe it's crazy, but he makes it feel like Christmas every day. Dear Santa, hurry through this sparkly winter night. He starts up a Christmas tree. With every jingle bell, I know if only me. I could see the end until he looked my way. I used to be blue, now I'm brand new, all wrapped up in red. I keep on dreaming of it.
Hi everyone, so I thought I'd come on today and have a little bit of a chat. I didn't really get to chat this morning before I went out to university, and when I came home it was a bit manic because we've been doing all the really big cleaning jobs that need doing, that you know you don't do every single week, like the cleaning the windows on the inside, the skirting boards and stuff like that, because we're putting Christmas decorations up tomorrow. So yeah, basically it's been a jam-packed day, and today's right now is really one of the first times where I've been able to just sit down and knit on my bauble. Today's been my last day at university. We had a criminal lecture and a dispute resolution lecture, and we brought in loads of little treats for each other on our table so that we could have like a little sort of nice little celebration before we left and things like that. So that was really lovely. But I thought I'd talk today and give you an update on the health condition that I've been alluding to but not really speaking much about, and that's not because I've been purposely wanting to hide it or anything like that. There is a bit of, I won't discuss some of the symptoms and some of the issues that I have because I have found it quite embarrassing and you know things like that, but it's more that we didn't know what was going on, and we still really don't know fully. But anyway, let's just go back. So about 3 years ago I started noticing some symptoms. They weren't really majorly affecting they weren't really impacted on my life, but I had an appointment with a nurse at my local, like an annual review at my GP surgery, and while I was there I was like, oh, by the way, is there anything like I can be doing at home to help with this issue? I was expecting her to tell me about some diet changes and stuff like that, but you know, she seemed a bit unsure and like didn't want to just go, oh yeah, it's this and this, like, you know, brush it under the carpet or anything like that, or say it was anything minor. So she booked me in with the GP, the doctor, and was like, you know, it probably worth getting some tests, like, you know, maybe some allergy tests and things like that. I was like, right, okay, no problem. Went to the GP, had that doctor's appointment. All my tests came back normal, and at the time I remember being absolutely thrilled, particularly about the celiac one, because I do have members of my family who are celiac, and I knew I was going to really struggle if that came back as positive. But now looking back, I really wish that some of these had to come back positive, because then it'd be easier to treat and we'd know what was going on. So yeah, I got referred to a specialist at the Royal Liverpool Hospital, which is one in my area. We've got loads of like local hospitals, but like, you know, certain ones only do certain specialties. So like the women's obviously looks after women's problems and maternity, older age, just kids and things like that. So like the Royals, the not necessarily local, but it's the local one that does gastroenterology. So yeah, that's what all these symptoms are. They were all gastro symptoms, all to do with the guts and things like that. So went, saw a specialist. Tests were they sent me for a load bit more invasive tests and things like that. Why do I keep saying and things like that? Anyway, sorry, but yeah, so they sent me for a load of tests, and things were just, they were coming back as every test was just coming back negative. There was like, you know, some of them would be like, oh, there's slight inflammation here, but that's not enough to cause the symptoms and things like that. Stop saying things like that. Ooh, anyway, so yeah, we were hitting a brick wall, and my mental health before this was doing really well. I've got, you know, some mental health problems. I've got recurrent depressive disorder, so I just keep getting bouts of depression for the rest of my life. So I have to be on like, you know, low dose of antidepressant. You know, I've got PTSD from an ex-relationship. And so my mental health is under control. It was not affecting me at all. I just, you know, take the medication I have to in the morning, do little things like my box breathing when I get stressed, and I'm able to, you know, really function normally and have a normal life. And that was before all this was coming on. But things were just getting worse. There was a point where we were waiting for tests, and until these tests came back, they would not, because this was right near the beginning. I was probably about a year in from reporting it to the nurse, because there was quite a bit of waiting lists. We were around this year point where I was waiting for a test, and they couldn't at this point offer me a single treatment until they'd had this test. And I was ready to hit a brick wall, because the symptoms were really progressing to where they were starting to impact on my everyday life. And they were starting to restrict my life in considerable ways. So I rung up for an emergency appointment, got through to a doctor who was not the normal specialist I saw, but they were so, you know, condescending and very dismissive of what I was going through. And just the way I was fobbed off, and how upset the appointment made me, and with them starting to hit brick walls and wondering what was going on with my health problems, they decided to refer me to a specialist in another NHS trust, so like the next town or city over, basically. So I went to this specialist in the next town or city. They're not any more qualified than what my specialist was. It was just supposed to be a bit of a fresh pair of eyes to sort of see if there was anywhere they could potentially go with regards to next tests, next treatments and things like that. So I got sent to this GP. This specialist was, you know, I was really excited about the appointment. I was like, maybe this might be it. We might find out some ish, like, you know, get a bit of way forward. Fresh pair of eyes, probably going to do the world of good. One of the first questions they asked, you know, was like, oh, what's, you know, medication you're on? Obviously, I was open and honest, and I told her about some of the mental health medications I was on. Well, told about all the medications I was on, but the mental health medications she absolutely fixated on. And bear in mind, one of the medications that I was on was, I'm on B12 injections because I have pernicious anemia. So basically, part of my body attacks another part, and it means that my body doesn't absorb the B12 because that part of the body that absorbs it's being attacked. So I have to get it injected. Now, there is some people who have problems with their guts and gastroenterology conditions, and that means that their body doesn't absorb the B12. So ideally, you see someone coming in, they've got gut problems, and one of their things is that they can't absorb B12. Surely you'd ask, why are you on the B12 medication? No, she never asked that. She never knew that I had pernicious anemia and that was an autoimmune disease causing that problem, not a gastro problem. And she just focused in on the mental health. And this is why it's just sort of an example about how she became so fixated on it. And I ended up sobbing when I left that appointment, because it was just a total waste. I got told it's completely down to your mental health. You know, you need to learn how to relax more, you know, and like, maybe if we try and send you to a bit of counselling and things like that. I was like, I'm doing fab. Well, before all these gastro symptoms, I was doing amazing. My community mental health team were actually going to discharge me before all these gastro conditions happened. So anyway, went back to my specialist, and he said, you know, he didn't think it was mental health related. He said, you know, you can't 100% rule it out, that, you know, there isn't, some mental health could be exacerbating the symptoms, but that's just because you technically can't rule out, because there's no test for that. But looking at the symptoms and looking at the picture overall, he, you know, ruled that out. And give this specialist his due that I'm under. He's done every test in the book. I've had, you know, colonoscopies, I've had blood tests, honestly, 1,000,001 samples done. I've had blood tests for everything. I had this one test where I had to swallow a pill that had a camera in it, and I had this belt attached to me which had, like, took images from this pill as it was going through my digestive system. Had this test where I had a synthetic bit of bile acid, I think it was, but it was put in a radioactive coating, and the test to see whether it was whether you were absorbing your bile acid properly was they scanned you and saw how radioactive you were. I'm genuinely not joking. I'll put the name of the test down in the description box. But this is what I mean. This doctor, give him his due, he's absolutely, you know, tested for anything that they can test for at this point, and we've not had a clear result on anything. So the stage is now, I'm under 2 specialists. They work together, so I'll see one of them, and they both chat back and forwards with each other about, you know, these are the updates, what do you think, is there anything you advise? And that's that's the way we go. They have come up with a diagnosis, sort of. So they've put it down as a category. So, for example, as I said, I've got autoimmune, my B12 is an autoimmune condition. That's just an autoimmune condition where one part of the body is attacking another part of the body. You know, you can have rheumatoid, I think it's rheumatoid arthritis. There's a form of arthritis where that is an autoimmune disease. They're both technically autoimmune disease, but, you know, they're completely different. So it's like, it's the overall category. So that's what they've narrowed it down to. And they've narrowed it down to the overall category of disordered gut-brain axis function. I have to think about that to not get the words muddled up. And so the best way I can describe what disordered gut-brain axis function is that our brain is constantly sending signals to the rest of our body while without us even thinking about it. So right now, my brain is telling my lungs to breathe. It's telling my heart to beat. If I do a bit of exercise, it will tell my heart to beat faster to get that blood going around. It'll make me breathe, you know, differently. And that's all done by the brain without you even having to think about it. The same way that the brain does that with the heart and the lungs is it's constantly sending signals down to your gut, telling your gut how to act. And that's what the gut-brain axis is where the brain is communicating with the gut. Mine, somewhere, is broken. So the signals are not going the signals are either on overload, the signals are going through intermittently, or, you know, they're not going through at all. My gut's sort of like, yeah, let's do what we think. So we don't know what it is. My symptoms and my test results do not match up with any gut-brain axis disorder that they know of. So at the moment, it's just experiment with treatments. So they're constantly giving me different treatments. We've gone through the number of treatments for gut-brain axis disorders. Every gut-brain axis disorder treatment for, you know, the different types of them. We've gone through all them. None of them have worked. We're now looking at, you know, other treatments that for other conditions that do, you know, overlap. So for example, I have really bad nausea. I vomit terrible. Yeah, babysitting, having to change nappies, that's one of the worst. I'm relieved I've not threw up on my nephew yet. But anyway, one of the medications that they tried me on was a medication that they give to people who are having chemotherapy to help control their nausea, and that wasn't working for me. So that's what I mean by we're starting to now try treatments for other medical conditions where some of the side effects are that they help with that. Yeah. So yeah, we're sort of shooting in the dark. We are unfortunately starting to run out of options, and that's been really hard to come to terms with and really hard to face, because this disorder's really affected my life, and it still does on a day-to-day basis. I've become a recluse, really, unless it's for university. I barely ever leave the house now. It's very hard for me to leave the house. When I do leave the house, it's with trusted family members, because when I get flare-ups and become ill, I just struggle to cope, and my family are able then to step in and help and basically get me back home as soon as possible. I had to quit my job as a tour guide because of this Don't get me wrong, it led me to go into university, so silver lining with that, but it means that, you know, there's certain jobs that I'd never be able to do no matter how much I want. So there's certain things I'm never going to be able to do no matter how much I want to do because of this condition, unless we get it under control. I don't want to end up finishing this video on a Debbie Downer note. So I'll sort of go through with what the last appointment was. They've contacted a specialist in Manchester, and he works with trials. That's what he does as a doctor, and they're all to do with, like, you know, the gut and gastroenterology, not necessarily to do with gut-brain axis, but he's fully aware of my case now, and he's constantly liaising back and forth with my specialist. The minute, you know, something like a trial opens up where there are signs that this medication, you know, can help with this, he'll put me on it as soon as he can. He'll, you know, let my specialist know if there's, you know, medication that they're becoming aware that this, you know, one of the side effects means that it helps with this and that. So that's the thing I have to hold on to at the moment, is we're learning new stuff every day. Medicine's changing every single day, and one of these trials could potentially give me my life back. So yeah, that's what I tried to hold on to and what I tried to hope with. So I'm sorry this has been really rambly and, you know, really in depth, but I wanted to be upfront and honest because I've been mentioning bits and pieces, and I've been careful what I've said, because I've not wanted to say anything that then has turned out to not be true, because the way of avenues that they were pursuing, where they were like, yeah, okay, we think it's this. For a while they thought it was an infection, and they were really honing in and focusing and testing for every type of infection, ones that are very rarely tested and stuff like that. But that all proved to be, you know, all negative. So yeah, that's why I'd not wanted to mention anything until we had something more concrete. And whilst we don't know what specific disorder I've got, we do know the type. And it's not mental health. Although it is the brain communicating, it doesn't, this one, it doesn't, it's not down to my mental health. Although it is damaging my mental health. Anyway, so yeah, I've not done much of this bauble, but I will get working on it again tomorrow, because I'm going to go to bed. Dog is passed out on the couch. I better go and take him up to bed so we can get comfy, because he's a little old man. Anyway, I hope you are all having a wonderful day. I hope you're all staying safe, taking care, and starting to enjoy the festive period. And I'll speak to you all tomorrow. Bye.